All right, party people, so it's time to get the Civic Type R finally vinyl wrapped. So welcome back, everybody. Hope you guys are doing awesome. Sorry for the lack of uploads lately, just been really busy, but got a lot more coming, hopefully really soon, especially with the ZL1. And I got a couple other things coming with the Type R as well. As I was saying earlier, we finally got the Civic Type R vinyl wrapped. Now, I was kind of going back and forth on a few things that I wanted to do with the car. You know, originally I had planned to get the carbon fiber hood that's on it right now that we installed a few videos ago. The original plan was to get that hood paint matched with the carbon fiber vents masked off, but honestly, like just shopping around at reputable paint shops, it was going to be about $600 to $800 because I wanted the special masking done, and I wanted to make sure that it was going to be high grade paint, and I wanted to make sure that, you know, it wasn't going to peel off later. You know, you wouldn't think getting a hood painted could cost so much, but if you want like a factory clean job, that's what it would cost. I was gonna do that, and then I was gonna get the PPF. I was gonna do the Expel PPF along the front end of the car and just call it a day. But the problem I kept running into was, even if I did have it painted, it was gonna take like 90 days for that paint to cure before I could even install PPF on it. Because if the paint hasn't cured, whenever that PPF has to be removed in the future, it would probably peel the paint off. So you got to make sure that it cures. And I was just like, man, this is kind of this is bugging me. But I needed to do something because I kept getting rock chips on the front of the car. Mainly because I live in Arizona, and rock chips is everybody's worst enemy out here, regardless of what kind of car you drive. Rock chips are just going to happen. So I needed a way to protect the paint, and so I decided on a vinyl wrap. And so I had a lot of things that I had to figure out. Number one, I had to choose who was gonna do the vinyl wrap, the color that I was gonna go with, the designs that I was gonna go with, all that crazy stuff. But before I get into that, I am gonna tell you how I came to those conclusions. But first, let's take a look at what the Civic Type R looks like. So the color that I have done on the car is called KPMF, that's the brand, and it is the matte iced red titanium, and I think it looks dead sexy. The tint of the color is almost identical to the OEM, except it's in a matte finish or a satin finish. And usually I'm not a big fan of matte finishes, but on this, I think it came out really well, you know, especially with the gloss black roof and, you know, having the vents of the carbon fiber hood, you know, masked off and everything. It just looks spot on. So I live in the Phoenix area and I've never had a car vinyl wrapped in my life. And so I didn't know what I didn't know about vinyl wrap. You know, I looked around on Google. I looked at, you know, all the reviews on the different shops, and a lot of shops had good reviews, and some of them had tons of reviews, and some of them had a few reviews. But interestingly enough, Pure Auto Detail, the people who did the ceramic coating on the car, we'll talk about them in a second, they follow my main channel, which is Tactical Toolbox. And they sent me a message one day and they saw that I had the Type R and they said, hey, if you ever want to get it ceramic coated, just let us know, you know, and we'll ceramic coat it for you. And I was like, well, that's really nice of you. When it came to the time where I decided I was going to vinyl wrap it, I just sent them a DM and I said, hey, who do you recommend for getting vinyl wraps? And they told me Stratton Motor Cars is the only vinyl wrap place that they deal with, you know, in this area. And so I was like, okay. So I started doing a little bit more research. I'll put a link to Stratton Motor Cars down in the description below in case you live locally and want to check them out. I'll also put a link for Pure Auto Detail, the guys that did the ceramic coating, and just in case you want to check those guys out as well. You know, one thing I like to look for whenever it comes to any type of shop is, does their social media in alignment with how real life is? And what I mean by that is it's really easy to make yourself look clean and, you know, professional on Instagram. It's super easy to do that on a website, but when you actually go to the shop, how does it actually look? I've seen it before where people look super professional online and then they're in a shack when you actually get to their place. So this place was not like that. I got to meet the owner and all the awesome employees that he has. They're all a great group of guys, but the place is meticulous. Not only that, but I also look at what type of cars that they typically work on, and they work on a ton of high-end stuff, you know, Lamborghinis, McLarens, Mercedes. I mean, they work on high-end cars, some of which, you know, were over $200,000, $300,000. And so what I did was on their social media, whenever they post photos of cars, sometimes they tag the owners. So I messaged the owners and asked them how they liked the result of what they had done. And everyone had great things to say. So I decided to go with these guys. They're super cool. To let me come in and make a video about it. Whenever I went in to meet the owner, I told him what my goal was. My goal was to kind of have something that's paint matched similar. Main reason I wanted to do that is if you ever do a color change on a car, they don't usually come out good, especially if your car is red. I really wanted to go with some kind of like titanium silver, but the problem is whenever the light shines through the panel gaps, you're gonna see the original color of the car. And it's really hard to do a color change, which is why when I bought the ZL1, that's why I bought black. Apparently black is the best color for vinyl wrapping because you can do any color you want. And the panel gaps, whenever light goes down into them, it's always gonna be black. So I was like, all right, that's cool. I told him I really wanted this to double as paint protection film. And I was like, what film do you recommend? You know, I know 3M's good and all that stuff, but I wanted the thick film. I wanted the film that not only changed the color, but doubled as PPF. And he told me KPMF. And then he took me out to the shop's pickup truck that was wrapped in KPMF. And the truck had been hit by another car and it didn't even tear through the vinyl wrap. It just scuffed it up. And I was like, okay, I'm sold. If a car can hit it, rocks can hit it. You know what I mean? This is probably gonna be the best bet. So I told him the designs I want, dropped the car off. So it's been about 4 months since the car is wrapped. I haven't put too many miles on it just because I work from home and I don't drive very much, but I've drove it around quite a bit. So far, the vinyl wrap is holding up really well. I'll show you some B-roll and stuff about it here in a second. Any cons about it? It has a couple of cons. Right around where the front fenders are, there's this plastic piece in the corner, you know, that comes around to where your windshield wipers are. And I can't get it to sit back into place correctly. You know, it all had to be pulled out in order to be vinyl wrapped, but for some reason I got a big gap there and I'm trying to figure out how to push that back in to get it to fit correctly. So I guess that's kind of a con, but otherwise it's holding up really well. It's not peeling off in any of the corners. And then I also had it ceramic coated by the guys at Pure Auto Detail. It's funny, I haven't even washed it since I picked it up. And you know, it did get really dirty. And I just went outside today and I took some waterless wash and a couple of microfiber towels and I washed the entire car. And it wiped clean super easily. I was very impressed with that. I mean, don't get me wrong, you can clean a car with waterless wash without a ceramic coat, but the ceramic coat 100% makes it so much easier just to get it cleaned up and everything. Now, I've never had a ceramic coating either, so one of the things that I'm curious about with a ceramic coat, and maybe you guys know out there, let me know down in the comments if you do, I'm wondering if it makes the vinyl last longer. Now, for my car, it's garaged. It doesn't sit out in the heat or the sun, so it's probably gonna last quite a while anyway. But I'm just wondering, does ceramic coat make vinyl wrap last longer? I don't know if it does, but it does clean up very nicely, and it's been a very interesting experience just to have that. One thing I will say is, you know, the way that it's vinyl wrapped and the way that I have the hood cut out and everything, I do get a lot of looks. And honestly, I don't really like getting a lot of looks, but I understand it's the type of car that it is, it's the color that it is. You're gonna get looks. It looks really good in my humble opinion, even though it is mine. And you know, maybe I'm biased on that, but I think the Civic Type R looks good in general. And I think that the satin finish on the vinyl wrap just kind of tones down that red that was on there. The red looks really good from the factory, but it's just a little bit too bright. I really wanted to tone it back. Another con that it's not really a con because they pulled it off really well. Because this vinyl wrap is so thick, on the back of the car where the emblem is, where the red H is, they had to cut an oval out that was larger than the actual emblem. And then what they did was they put black vinyl wrap underneath it. And the reason they had to do it that way was because this vinyl wrap is a lot thicker than others. And every time they cut around the emblem, the vinyl just wouldn't lay down and stick properly. They improvised, and I think they pulled it off really well. It's not really a con, but I guess if you didn't want that type of cutout, well, you'd be a little SOL if you're gonna go with KPMF. But overall, I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited because I'm gonna be doing the Camaro ZL1 next. Also, let me know what color I should do the ZL1. I'd love to hear your guys' feedback about that because that one's kind of a blank canvas. Because it's black, I can wrap it in any color that my little heart desires. So let me know what you think I should do. So let's talk about the cost. Now, I don't remember the exact price. They did give me somewhat of a discount to make video. So the cost of the vinyl wrap, I believe, is around $3,000. That's installed, that's the wrap ordered, everything. But don't quote me on this price because this was their first time doing a Civic Type R. And from what the guys that installed it told me, they said that the Civic Type R is the most difficult car to vinyl wrap that they've ever vinyl wrapped before. They straight up told me, they're like, we did not realize it was gonna be this difficult and this time consuming. I mean, they said that they've done Lamborghinis that were easier to vinyl wrap than the Civic Type R. So if you're gonna get your Civic Type R vinyl wrapped and you're not gonna do it yourself, be prepared to pay out the butt just for labor cost. Here's a couple of examples. On the rear wing, on the side pieces, it's basically two halves that are put together. And if you wanna get it vinyl wrapped correctly, you have to pull those halves apart and then wrap each side, then put them back together. The problem is, from the factory, there's these little clips inside that kind of hook, say like this, right? Well, Honda glued those clips. So in order to pull them apart, they have to be broken and then they have to be re-glued back together. That's just something unnecessary that Honda did from the factory. I guess if you're running an aftermarket wing, it doesn't really matter, but that's just something to keep in mind, you know, if you're gonna get your Civic Type R vinyl wrapped. A couple of other things that make it really difficult to vinyl wrap, aside from the spoiler, is the vortex generators along the top. You gotta pop all of those off, vinyl wrap them individually. But the hardest part for this entire car, from what I'm told, is that front bumper. It's because of all the cool little cutouts, the little vents. There's so many different pieces that have to be laid down, and they have to be laid down in a certain order so you don't see the seams between the different pieces of vinyl wrap. Like I said, so I think if I would have paid him full price, it probably would have cost around $3,000, but be prepared if you get your Civic Type R vinyl wrapped to pay more than $3,000 because they said that was one of the hardest cars they've ever done. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments section below, guys. I'd love to hear what your feedback is. A couple other things that we got going on with the Civic Type R coming up. I got a splitter. We got a front splitter that we're gonna be installing. I'm getting it retuned, you know, with the E85 in it and the Hondata fuel system. So I'm excited to see, you know, how much we can get out of this car, how much we can improve the 0 to 60 and all that crazy stuff. And then PRL just released the P600 turbo kit. So I'm gonna try to get my hands on one of those and then get it retuned and just see how far we can take this thing. And then also we're gonna be doing the ZL1. I got the headers for it. I'm just waiting to get them put on. Let me know what your thoughts are, guys, down in the comments section below. But until next time, I love you, and you guys stay sexy.